All right. Welcome, everyone. Go ahead, Val. Thank you so much.
All right, so welcome to the Cultural Humility webinar series created by the Georgia RIM Mental Health Alliance. My name is Val Parlatisi. I'm a graduate research assistant working with the MHA. We're a collaborative that aims to expand mental health services for refugees, immigrant and migrant communities across Georgia. We created the series to promote conversation and inform our mental health professionals and staff. It is important to note that cultural humility is a lifelong process of self-reflection, but a big step in this journey is a willingness to actively listen to and learn from each other's experiences. And by being here today, you're all taking that really important step. And today we are focusing on Eritrea. Next slide. Oh, there we go. So Eritrea is located in what is referred to as the Horn of Africa on the Red Sea. It's bordered by Ethiopia, Sudan, and Djibouti. The capital and most populous city is Asmara. Asmara has a really interesting origin story from the Tigrinya oral histories. It's said that it was originally settled in the 12th century by four clans that formed four distinct villages. And these villages suffered frequent attacks by other clans. So the women of the village gathered and convinced the men that by uniting, they could defeat their common enemy. And Arbit Asmara, I apologize if I'm saying that incorrectly, was the original name of one of the villages, and it literally translates to "the four made them unite." I thought that was a really beautiful story. And Asmara pictured here is a gorgeous city whose art and architectural history made it a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 2017. Also pictured here is the national flag. The red triangle symbolizes the bloodshed during their war for independence, and the 30 leaves on the wreath represent each year of civil war that led to independence. Next slide. So the next two slides are a timeline that highlights some events that have led to the current crisis. It's important to note that the origins of conflict in Eritrea are complex and a result of a very long history of colonization, as well as civil and border wars. So this timeline in no way encompasses the many, many intricacies of the conflict and its history. The timeline begins with an end to a very long, very costly, in terms of money, resources, and human lives, war for independence. The country was under Italian colonial rule until their defeat in World War II, the Italians. Afterwards, the United Nations delegates voted to make it a constituent state of Ethiopia, and it was later annexed by Ethiopia after a brief fight for independence in the 60s. And finally, after 30 years of war, the Eritrean People's Liberation Front captured Asmara, and in 1993, the people voted for independence. Isaias Afwerki was named president in its first and subsequently only presidential election. Since 1993, since that election, the political state has become increasingly totalitarian and is best described as a dictatorship, as the president has mostly unchecked powers as head of both government and head of state. The only political party that is allowed to exist is the People's Front for Democracy and Justice, and the presidential elections have been continuously postponed for various reasons. A constitution which includes multi-party elections was ratified in 1997, but was not and has yet to be implemented. And in the ensuing years, border conflicts with Ethiopia eventually launched the Eritrean-Ethiopian War that killed over 70,000 between both countries. Another part of this timeline that I really want to highlight is, so in 1995, the National Service Proclamation required all citizens between 18 and 40, both male and female, to enlist in the military. This specific proclamation has had a tremendous effect on the citizenry for many decades. And next slide. All right, so in 2014, the United Nations Human Rights Council launched a commission of inquiry to investigate systemic, widespread, and gross violations of human rights. The report stated crimes of enslavement imprisonment, enforced disappearances, torture, persecution, rape, murder, and other inhumane acts have been committed as part of a campaign to instill fear in, deter opposition from, and ultimately to control the Eritrean civilian population since Eritrean authorities took control of Eritrean territory in 1991. In 2022, the United Nations Deputy High Commissioner for Human Rights said that since the last oral update in 2016, the human rights situation in Eritrea remained dire and showed no signs of improvement. Interestingly, Eritrea is itself a member of the UN Human Rights Council, despite the serious violations and continuously blocking entry to UN staff and other human rights monitors. And returning to the conflict with Ethiopia, it ended with a peace treaty in 2018. Although it was denied, the Eritrean military joined Ethiopian forces in the Tigray conflict in 2020. And since then, both military groups have been accused of continued war crimes and crimes against humanity associated with their involvement in the conflict, including the mass rape, execution, and enslavement of civilians even after the peace treaty was signed in 2022. Next slide. And today there are 580,000 Eritrean refugees worldwide, 345,000 in East Africa alone. The US is home to about 13,000. The overwhelming majority have stated that indefinite forced military service as a result of the National Mass Conscription Service as the principal reason for fleeing the country. The National Military Service is continued indefinitely for many citizens, and release from it is often happens arbitrarily with no process or recourses for those that remain in active duty. And next slide. So now I'm going to turn it over to our panelist discussion moderator, Dr. Mary Helen O'Connor. Dr. O'Connor is Deputy Director of the Prevention Research Center at GSU and Director of the Clarkson Center for Community Engagement.
Thank you, Val. I'm excited and honored today to be joined by Dr. Paulos Iohannis, who is the Associate Dean for Research at my college and also my boss, and Obai Afewerki, who has been my student assistant for many, many years and also a close friend and someone I met, goodness, Obai, how many years ago? I think you were about 10 years old when I met you, but so we've had a long-standing relationship and have taught me a lot about what it means to be Eritrean versus what it means to be Ethiopian and what it means to be from East Africa. So I'm very honored that they were willing to join us today to talk a little bit about their country and their journey and their adjustment to life in the United States. So we'd like for this to be a conversation. We have quite a few attendees today, which is very exciting. So let's get started. Paulos, if you'd like to tell us just a little bit about what you think is important for people in the United States to understand or know about Eritrea and what has caused so many people to flee the country. You have your own family experience as well as extended family. I think that would help people understand a little bit about the political situation and what's causing so many people to seek safety somewhere else.
Sorry, I was muted. Yeah, I don't know if I can say much about the political situation because the way I have been here for 43 years, most of my life. The way I came also is very different from most of the people that come from Ethiopia, Eritrea, or other parts of Africa. I came here as a graduate student and then came to Emory, working there, and then here at Perimeter College. So my experience is kind of different. And also at the same time, grew up in Ethiopia. I was there until until I reached the age of college. So it's kind of different, but I don't know most of my relatives in Eritrea, I would say, because of the way I was, I came here and I was also raised in Ethiopia a little bit and then came here. So it's just difficult for me to talk a lot about, how the path, the path for most of the refugees here is different from mine. I didn't come here as a refugee, but But there are a lot of Eritreans here. I don't know the number, but I would assume about about 5,000 or something. And they have the Eritrean community at the Memorial Drive, somewhere there. And we got to be very mindful because there is a political divide among the Eritreans, those that support the government, those that oppose the government type of thing. So working with them, you got to be very careful because you have to, what you want to do is just, work on the mental health and other things that you like to do, the one that you are very much interested, Dr. O'Connor and Dr. Erickson. So you got to be careful when you do work with them because of the political divide. They have, I think, two different lines and two very different thinkings about the government. So although they all came here as a refugee, but that's the divide they have. So the way I have been involved, particularly in the Eritrean church here when it just got started in 1998. And I have always been very careful not to be on this side or on that side because I'm not a political person. I'm just a simple chemist working on something else. So I don't want to get into that, involved into that. So, and the best way to help them, the best way to do what you want to do and improve in what you're doing is to get away from the politics, of their politics. That's, I think, one thing that I would like that. As far as I think you're focusing on mental health because of your experience and stuff like that, or even other things. Yeah, mental health is there, but it's very, very hidden. I have heard through some people here in Atlanta, there are some issues. And I heard a couple of people actually died of it, kind of committing suicide. So there is, but it's very difficult to get that out of the community and say this person needs help or that person needs help. So I don't know how you better know, you know better than I do how to confront that or work with the Eritrean community. It's going to be a little bit challenging. So that needs to be very well taught and see what you can do with that one.
Before I let you go, I want you to before we go to the next question, Dr. Johannes, tell us about the languages that are spoken in, and that there's not just one, and because you're a very good example of someone who grew up in Ethiopia, there's such a close relationship between Eritrea and Ethiopia, even though they have been at war at some points. It's still so many people have maybe an Ethiopian father or an Eritrean mother, or many Eritreans have grown up in Ethiopia. So I wondered if you could just talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, because Eritrea and Ethiopia, they used to be one country. So you have that tie still there. It's not going to disappear. And then it kind of died away because of the war. And then the other war came back, and then they kind of came together. But there were people coming also from Eritrea to Ethiopia, not as much from Ethiopia to Eritrea. There were people coming from Eritrea to Ethiopia. And the people here, even the Ethiopian community, the Ethiopians here and the Eritreans, they work together. And there are a significant number of Eritreans and Ethiopians that serve in the transportation area, taxi and stuff like that. They help each other a lot. So yeah, that's basically what it is. But a lot of Eritreans fled their country to Ethiopia, stayed in Ethiopia for a while, and then some of them went to Europe, some of them came here, and that's how life has been for Eritreans and Ethiopians. Yeah. But there is a huge community, or there is a huge Ethiopian community here.
Yes, yes.
About 60,000. So
yes, huge.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so Michael has a question, I think, for you.
Yes, thank you, Paulus. I was wondering, when you were young and growing up in Ethiopia, did you have any sense that there was going to be conflict between Ethiopia and the separation of Eritrea, and that there was dislike, or was it something that could be projected and forecast? Was it a lingering cultural difference that manifests itself in conflict, or is this surprising to you?
Not as much, I wouldn't say that, but there was the desire by the Eritrean community in Ethiopia to be a separate state. Just because of the politics that was there in the past. Eritrea was colonized by Italians for 60 years, followed by about 10 to 12 years by the British government in the Second World War or something like that, then annexed by Ethiopia. And there were at that time people that wanted to be part of Ethiopia. There were some Eritreans that want to be part of Ethiopia, but because of some, not cultural, the majority of them, they have the same religion, the Greek, Orthodox, Coptic Orthodox, and also Muslim religion, very similar. You find it in both. They're about the same religion. I shouldn't say about, I should say the same religion, practically. But because of the issues that they had with the government, the Eritrean people at that time said that they were discriminated against in the higher positions. So those type of things, and some of the way the ruler was at that time, which was the Emperor Haile Selassie, which was, it's kind of a dictatorship anyway. So they didn't like that part, because at that time, Eritrea had its own parliament. Ethiopia kind of didn't. It was more liberal in Eritrea and less in Ethiopia. More industrialized in Eritrea because of the colonization, less industrialized in Ethiopia. And that is one of the reasons why my parents came to Ethiopia, because of some of the, little technological advantage that my dad has, probably could earn a better living in Ethiopia, so he came to Ethiopia. So, that's basically what it is. But there wasn't that much animosities. There wasn't that much hatred and stuff like that. The people don't hate each other. They're working, they're living together here as well. So I don't see that part.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. I'm going to pull Obai in here because generationally, so Obai came along, and I know from knowing him well, he was born in a town on the border between Ethiopia and Eritrea, where the war actually started. So Obai, I was hoping you could tell us a little bit about what it's like to have been born in that town, and a little bit about your childhood and how much time you spent in a refugee camp, and sort of your journey to the United States as a young person.
Okay, yeah. Can y'all hear me? Yeah, hello everyone. So I was born in a town called Badume, as Mary Helen mentioned. That's where that's between the border between Eritrea and Ethiopia. And I think that's where the war started. I don't really remember much of it. When I was maybe 1 or 2, we had to go to the refugee camp. We went to Walanhebi, then we went to Shimelba. And I spent most of my life over there. And in the refugee camp, there were some Ethiopians, there were Eritreans, different people there, and I think that everyone there got along, everybody worked together. That's what I remember from my childhood. And then I think that in the refugee camp, that's where people mental health got worse, because you're just in the refugee camp, not doing really anything. Sometimes you have anxiety just waiting for your turn to come to United States. Some people haven't been called for 13 years, 20 years. I think we waited maybe 9 years without a job. And then we came here in 2005. and it was a hard transition. I know that my parents did a really good job, but I can tell that they were struggling. When we first came here, there wasn't a lot of Eritrean or Ethiopians. From my experience, I never really cared if the person was Ethiopian or Eritrean. We call somebody Habesha, and for me in my lifetime, they've been kind to me. Any Habesha person I've seen, we communicated really well. I don't think I had a bad experience. When you go to the store, you work at the job, they be like, "Are you Habesha?" You be like, "Yes." Most of the time they speak to you in Amharic because the population is more. Yeah, that's my experience.
Thank you, Obai. That was helpful. I'm gonna push you a little bit more because I think what's important for people who are working with this community to understand the average stay right now for refugees that are in displacement is about 20 years. So you talked about being in the refugee camp for 9 years, and I've interviewed you and we've worked on a book project together. And there were a lot of difficulties about living in the refugee camp that I think people who are not familiar with that could benefit from understanding. So you talked a little bit about not having a job. Like, did you go to school? Where did the food come from? Were you hungry? Where did you sleep at night? Like, kind of some of those details could help people understand so that when they are working with people who've been living in refugee camps for a long time, they have a better idea of what it's like.
Yeah, okay. When we first moved to Walanhibi, I know things have gotten better, but from my experience, we had to build our own house. So my dad had to build his own house. You had to get food. I don't remember exactly, but it wasn't like daily, It's not like America where you eat 3 times a day. But I know you had to, they give you portions according to your family. So if you have like 5 kids, they probably give you more. I actually went to school. The kids went to school, but I was talking about the adults. They I don't know, they had nothing to do. Now I heard now that the refugees camps got better, but I could, there was nothing to do during that time.
I remember, I'm not sure, Obai, if you remember the student that I had, and this goes, Paulos, a little bit into the situation in Eritrea. I had a student who had been able to escape. He was an Eritrean college student, and he was put on a bus and was told that he was going to college, but he was not. He was taken to be conscripted into the army, and so he escaped. Which has been sort of the situation. That was probably about 10 years ago. So I don't know if things have changed, but like service in the army is mandatory for everyone that's living there. And I know, Paulos, that you also have some family members who are awaiting arrival in the United States through the Welcome Corps, which I think everyone would benefit from hearing about what you've learned about that particular experience. We have not talked about that yet in our trainings. So I'm just wondering if you could share a little bit about that group of people and how you are working to sponsor them and get them here.
Yeah, okay. The Welcome Call is a new program in the US, I think. That type of program has been going on in Canada for a while. So there were, I think, a lot of Eritreans that moved from Israel, the Sudan, Libya, or wherever they are as refugees that came to Canada. Now the United States recently started this program, and what it is if you have 5 people that are willing to help a refugee, you can sponsor a refugee from wherever that person is. Well, I shouldn't say wherever, pretty much wherever. There are certain restrictions, but pretty much wherever. So what you do is just fill out the form and fill out your background check and everything, and then just wait until they process them to come to the US. And once they come to the US, then there are certain procedures that you need to follow, the healthcare, all those type of things. and you know, renting an apartment, food, all those type of things. So, but there are some challenges because the welcome call, what I have encountered is a welcome call requires UNHCR refugee updated, you know, document. And those that are particularly in Israel, for the most part, from what my cousin is telling me, is they got the UNHCR from another country. Let's say, for example, my cousin got it from the Sudan, and she traveled through the Sinai into Israel like 14 years ago or 15 years ago, something like that. And now the challenge is Welcome Corps is saying, where is the refugee, updated refugee, UNHCR refugee document? She doesn't have. She had it like 14 years ago from the Sudan. That's where she documented as a refugee. So that has become, that is a challenge now that we are facing. So, but I don't think the US Corps know about people that are living in Israel. There is no way to get a UNHCR refugee. They don't give them a refugee status at all because probably of their policy. I don't know. I don't understand, but they don't. They can't get it. Unless they get it, they're not going to come here. So that's that situation for my cousin now.
Wow, that's a big update.
Yeah.
That we have some other friends who have similar problems. So we have you know, folks from Afghanistan, and they don't have a way to register with the UNHCR. So their family members are stuck unless they can get into another country where they can get one. I wanted to ask both of you all, what advice do you have for anyone, case managers or people who are working in the mental health space, or anyone working with new arrivals from Eritrea? What advice do you have in helping people get adjusted to life in the United States? What's the most difficult part of it?
Yeah, I would just say to be patient and like don't feel sorry for them. I would say like to just educate them, teach them how the training work, basically how the system work. I would just say those are big concepts for me.
Yeah, I think we all know that I mean, if they tell you their stories, it's just, I don't want to hear it. They came through a lot. I mean, walking through a desert in Sinai, it's a lot.
Apologies, I'm not sure people understand that fully. So explain exactly what you're talking about, because this happens a lot. People have to do that.
They go through through the Sinai, from what I've heard. I could be wrong, but from what I heard from my relatives, is just going through kind of hell, I would say, because there are people that live in that area. There is a lot of things that goes through there, including rape. I have heard of people saying that they were raped, the ladies were raped, and then they gave birth to a child in Israel. And that was very difficult, and there was some sort of mental issue at that point in time. So, you know, people coming from, I'm not saying everybody's like that, but there are people coming from those areas, they have their own experiences. And that they went through a lot. So there is some sort of, I would say, mental issues, something like that, that needs to be investigated, or you guys as experts should be able to get some sort of questionnaire or something and talk to them once they come here. The difficulty that they have once they get here, again, I got to be very careful. I'm not saying everyone who comes here has that type of experience. Some of them are okay, some of them, but there are some few, I don't have that number, but there are some bad experiences among these refugees. So when they come here, their difficulty is the language. To go to work, you need transportation. So there is no transportation. And then eventually what happens to them is just they stay home. And that's not good health, I guess. And then things like other health issues can come by because of not doing anything. But one positive thing about these people are they're very, very, very hardworking people. You can get them to work, whatever job it is, they can do that. And they are very eager to go to school. They can do that. You got to be careful with them about their health. That's something that you as experts need to talk to them, get something and find out what help they need as far as health is concerned. Yeah.
Well, I think Obai is a perfect example of what you just said, because over the years, my Eritrean and Ethiopian students have been some of the best and brightest students that I've taught in 20 years. So I definitely agree with you. Obai, I remember when we were working on your story that you were telling me about some being aware of some things that were happening in the refugee camp that were similar to what Paulos was talking about. So not things that happened to you, but things that you were aware of that were happening around you. And I wondered if you could talk about some of those things so that people could understand what people coming from a refugee camp might have seen or witnessed or experienced.
Yeah, in the refugee camp, there wasn't like a security or police officers. They had one police station like all the way at the top of the mountain, but they couldn't watch 1,000 people. So they would be probably like they would be stealing, rape, and then always burn in each other's house. Basically, people had to survive. I know that some women that they lost their husband in the war had to take care of the kid, and it was hard because they didn't have a good support. There was a lot of young men and young women by themselves. I would just say those people, probably just move through it without getting any help. Like what Dr. Yuna said, that they are very hardworking people, and they probably just move it to the side and never thought about it again. And yeah, a lot of stuff did happen, and I would suggest that if they're okay with that, they all get help, because if it didn't happen to them, it probably happened to somebody they know or heard. I'm pretty sure everybody have seen something that they want to forget. So I think it's best for everyone. I would say that in our community, Habesha community, our Eritrean community, that we really don't like talking about mental health, and it's like if you go into mental health, it's like you're a crazy person, or that guy is not normal. So I would just say that whoever is interviewing them, that you make sure that you let them know this is just between me and you. You show them legal work, and you show them that you can sue them, because it takes a lot for Eritreans to talk about their mental health and their bad experience. My family, my mom, my dad never talk about their struggle. I think first is pride, and second, they don't want other people to worry about them, and that's how Habesha people are. They always try to be happy for everyone. So that's how I would say.
Dr. Owen Smith put in the chat some questions, and I did want to offer it to all of our participants that if you'd like to unmute and ask questions, or if you'd like to just put them in the chat. Obai, you touched on this, and Paulos, I would love for you to also respond. But Ashley was asking how mental health related, what are some words that are used in the Habesha community to talk about mental health? Like sometimes people talk about stress or different things like that instead of talking about trauma or having a mental health issue. I think that Obai already talked a little bit about how stigmatized it is. But we wondered what's the, and Obai, you started to go into this a little bit, but what is the best way to start a conversation if you have someone who you think, an Eritrean community member who may need some mental health support, a good way to start a conversation about that?
Yeah. You're asking me or Ogbai?
Both of you.
Of us, okay. Yeah. Let me the word that he's using, Habesha, I don't know if you've heard about Habesha word before. Is when he says Habesha is referring to those groups that speak the Semitic language. Most part of Ethiopia and most part of Eritrea.
Would you also define the languages so that people know?
Yeah, there are the one of the Amharic is the Ethiopian official language, and in Eritrea, I think Tigrinya and Arabic is the official language. That's what I heard years ago. I don't know right now. So and there is also Tigrinya speaking people in northern part of Ethiopia. So those are those people that follow the Orthodox religion, the Orthodox Coptic Christian religion, are the ones that speak the Semitic language. You know, very I shouldn't say very close, but close to Hebrew and Arabic type of.
And it would be really important to get the right kind of interpreter too. Like the differences between Amharic and Tigrinya, I think are enough that you would, if you were asking for an interpreter in a medical situation, especially, that you would want to have not ask for an Amharic interpreter if you speak Tigrinya, right?
Yeah. These are two very closely related languages. They came from Ge'ez, which is a very old language. That is the language used in the churches, in Ethiopian and Eritrean churches. It came from it has its own alphabets, its own numbers, its own culture, very different type of thing. But I think about mental health, I can give you an example. At one point, there was an Eritrean doctor, medical doctor, that wanted to give kind of a lecture about mental health. It was in the church area. Oh boy. And also he got up and asked him, why are you talking to us like this one? There is nobody who is, they don't say mental health, they say nobody crazy around us here. Why are you talking to us like this? It was just a disaster. So I think that's what I put in the chat here. The best thing to do is to go to the community center, talk to the leadership. They are educated, they know the community, and the people trust the community because they are chosen or elected by the community. So they trust them. And that way you can do a lot of things that you can discover a lot of things as far as mental health is concerned. Yeah, I mean, it's just.
But we're not going to go give a lecture on mental health.
We can give, if it is coming through, it's coming from the community.
I think that's really important advice. I think that's a really, very good story.
Don't like it. Yeah, some people don't like it, but this was years ago. I don't know how it is right now. But I think the best thing to do is to start from the community centers that are on Memorial Drive, both the Ethiopian and the Eritrean community centers. You can talk to them. And there is also another Eritrean community center in Taka, which is, because of political divide, they have kind of separate, not separate. This one says the people on the Memorial Drive, they say that there's no politics, but it's just messy. You don't want to do it. Yeah. So anyway, it's better to go to both areas and talk to them, or ask the others to come to the other one. This one is huge. The one on Memorial Drive is big. They have three big halls, I think, something like that, that can hold 500, 600 people. So That's the best place to start, I think.
That's very helpful. Obai, I'm going to ask you a very personal question, but you've already talked about it a little bit. So Obai and I dream about writing a book, and we've done a lot of work on the book actually. And someday when I have time, not writing articles for Michael, I'll have time to write a book with Obai. But Obai, what did we decide the title of your book is going to be? I want you to say that, and then I want you to explain a little bit why you feel that way. So
What
remember,
was it? No, was
you
it
don't remember?
hope? I don't know.
No, it was I don't want you to feel sorry for me.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So you've already explained that as being a very important part of Eritrean culture and identity. So, and Paulos has talked about it too. And I think that the pride that you have in the journey that you've had, as well as what you've overcome and what you've done here in the United States, has a lot to do with that. But I wondered if you would just talk a little bit about it.
Yeah, I think as everyone mentioned, the Eritrean people are like they work really hard, they brave. I think they just want a fair chance. They just want a shot at the American dream. Um, they don't want nobody to give them charity or to feel sorry for them. I think they just want a chance from most of the Eritreans that I've seen in our community. As we mentioned, they love school, and as Dr. Jonas mentioned, they really work anything. Sometimes they work 3 jobs, start business, and I like how they have the mindset and they have goals.
So, Michael has a question. I just want to brag real quickly. Obai is the first in his family to graduate from college, and I think that that's such an incredible accomplishment, and I'm so proud of him. But what other people don't know about Obai is that he also takes care of his siblings. And so he is got brothers and a sister at Indian Creek Elementary, and one in middle school, I think now, right?
Yeah.
And the principal of the elementary school is a good friend of ours. And she when did your brother win his award? Last
year.
Last year, yeah. So Obai not only is an incredible human being on his own, achieving his own amazing things, he's also helping to make sure his brothers and sisters are amazing as well. And I have to brag on Paulos, who has children who are grown, but a special connection is that his son is a physician who has come back and has started volunteering in the clinic, actually where I'm sitting right now, and is helping the community so much. And his wife actually was here volunteering when I was here last week. And so it means a lot to me to see you all doing so much for your own community here. And I appreciate all that you all have done to make Clarkston and this community and all that you do. Obai is also a soccer coach to help other people so that they can adjust to their new lives here. Michael, did you want to go ahead and ask your question?
Yeah, thank you. And this is driven a little bit by Obai's comments about a sense of not wanting to revisit the past traumatic events and things like better forgotten and really not wanting to talk about it. And I'm thinking both in terms of mental health, and that goes to Paulus's comment that the media people immediately jump to a mental health discussion to think someone's crazy, and at the same time there are these traumatic events that people rather not talk about that are best forgotten. And I guess the question is, someone like me who wants to get to know or work with the Eritrean community, what's the best advice you have of wanting to get to know people, but not at the same time intruding in areas that are sensitive or hurtful, or rather not explore or discuss that you've experienced, particularly Obai, for you, that you may have seen and witnessed and like to put behind you as opposed to revisiting? And if there's any, advice about how do you get to know someone without bringing up difficult memories?
That's a good question. I think just treat them like you would with any other person. I think when they like are ready, or if they want to talk about it, they will talk with you. But just do like normal stuff with them. Talk about maybe sports or things that you have in common. Food. I would suggest that. And then when they're ready and they're comfortable and they trust you, then they probably open up.
Yeah, I would start from the community or even from the church, because, in the culture, what they do is whatever bad it is, whether it's mental health or some other, traumatic type of situations, according to the religion, they're supposed to go and talk to their priests. They spell it out. So the priest is one source right there. To talk to, and the priest is willing. He is willing to talk to anyone. I mean, you can go and say, I want this one. Can I meet some people? Can I have something? Or there are also some festivities, church festivities, or some festivities at the community centers. When you have the time or something, I'll be willing to take you there and introduce you, and then talk to them, understand what they say, how they say things and stuff like that. And it will be a lot easier. It's not going to be very difficult to get, research done on the community. I don't think it's that difficult. We can do it. I mean, if there is a need, so that, but there is a lot of wells of things to, as far as academic is concerned, as far as health, public health is concerned, a lot of things that we can learn from them.
Paulos, the next part of the Prevention Research Center that we are going to be starting is going to deal with social isolation, and you touched on this a little earlier. And Obai, I wondered, I know your mom, and I've known her well, but I do think it's a little more difficult for older immigrants and refugees to get integrated into society because of language. And so it ends up that there's a lot of isolation. So I wondered if you all could talk a little bit about that, what you've seen in your parents, Obai and Paulos, and older adults, and how difficult it is for them when they come here, and maybe some things that you think would help address that situation and make it easier on older folks who are coming to the United States.
Yeah, that's the difficult part for most of them. You said it right, Dr. O'Connor. The isolation is right there. You see them, and actually what my wife was doing in the church was having coffee time for the adults. And she brings them from wherever, and their children will drive them to the church. There is a hall there that they can congregate, and that was, my wife comes home very happy and stuff like that, because she sees them very happy. And you can tell that they were in isolation because they stay home, their children go out to work. They don't have they can't speak the language, so they can't even talk to their neighbors. And they are in isolation. And I don't know what happens if you are in isolation. You guys know, you are the experts in public health, but I expect there are some issues there. But they do suffer quite a bit in that area.
Yeah, I would agree with him. For my mom, there wasn't a lot of Habesha in our community or Eritreans. So she just started having friends that were in the same situation as her, which were refugee. So she had a good friend from Burundi, and they would also have coffee, and just to have someone in common that's in your situation, it made them feel better, The communication, I don't know how they communicated, but they just spoke the small English. And yeah, they were really happy. And I think just trying to find someone like you really helps them.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's isolation is not the thing back in Ethiopia and Eritrea. I can give you an example. I went there and then I met an old friend that lives in Germany. And she came to Ethiopia and said, "Why are you here?" And she said, "Yeah, I'm here. How are you?" And stuff like that. And she told me that she came because her sister, who lives in Addis Ababa, was gravely ill, very sick. So she came over. And then I said, okay, I had a driver at that time in Addis. That was last year. So I said, I can give you a ride. So I took her to her sister's place. That's where she was staying. And then she said she has to go buy medicine. Can you help me, drive me and buy medicine for my sister? I said, okay. And then she got out and went to the neighbor and said, I'm leaving, take care of my sister. That's the way they live. I mean, you can trust your neighbor. Your neighbor is just everything for you. So they're used to that type of support. They don't get it here. Once you are in that house, your neighbor is out the job market or working somewhere, there's nobody. And that isolation is going from that type of living conditions where you support, and there is a lot of things. I mean, you don't have babysitter there. You have your kid, that's it. You just tell the neighbor, they'll take care of that. So they came from that type of living conditions to an isolation. And you can imagine how that drop is, vertical drop completely. And that puts them in some sort of bad situation.
I think that's such an important distinction. And I don't think it's just Eritrean and Ethiopian, but so many other cultural practices from other countries that are communal and more based on family and intergenerational living coming to the United States, where it's not done that way. Usually parents, children move away and they don't live with their parents. And that's not really how it's done in a lot of the rest of the world. And so that adjustment, I know that's one of the responsibilities that Obai has taken on, is taking care of his siblings, because there's not a whole extended family around to help take care of everyone. And I think it's a huge implication for us to think about when we're trying to help support people, and just being a friend and having coffee. But I think that's probably the most important. Who has the best coffee, Eritrean or Ethiopian coffee?
They both have this very good coffee, and mind you, the coffee period is not for me, because I can't stay for 3 hours talking. It's 3 hours talking with the coffee, so it's just that's where they kind of, yeah.
It's a long time, right? You sit for a long time.
Yeah, it's kind of a healing process or something. I don't know what it is, but they like it. So that's
Yes.
So you can find that one also in the community centers.
You can find it in Obai's living room. His mom had me over
okay, they
and
do that, yeah.
roasted the coffee for me right there. Yeah.
And make you smell the aroma or something.
Yes, it's marvelous, and you do enjoy it for quite a long time. Well, I wanted to we needed to wrap up because we've come to the end of the time. I didn't know if any other participants had any questions to put in the chat. If anyone wanted to make a comment. I just want to thank you both for your tremendous willingness to share some difficult topics to talk about that I think are really important and that can help people in the United States do a better job of welcoming and understanding people from Eritrea. You are both incredible friends, and I'm so grateful for your help. And I think, do you guys have any last words or words of wisdom or advice for our team? This team that we're talking to today is part of our Mental Health Alliance. So the people who are watching this training are going to be taking care of refugees who are arriving in the United States that are dealing with, of course, the stress of learning how to build a new life in a new country. So I didn't know if I'm going to give you guys the last word. So Obai and Paulos, you guys can just close it with what you'd like to say to people who are doing this work.
Yeah, I would say thank you for doing this type of research. I think this research is very much needed, especially in our community. I would just say keep working. If you need advice, we are here.
Yeah, that's thanks for the opportunity to just, tell you something a little bit what I know about the refugee. Although I didn't experience that one, I was fortunate enough. I just came from the capital city all the way to the US. That's all I was. But a lot of them went through a lot of situations like that. But I think one thing which is very true is a lot of Eritreans that came in 1980s as refugees from the Sudan, their children are at GSU, UGA, a lot of places, and they have excelled very well. And I think, if you want to talk to them one-on-one, it may be also very helpful to talk through their children because they trust them, and the children also understand situations like this one, so they can, that would be very, very helpful. So yeah, a community, the priest, and the children.
I think this has all been very helpful and extremely specific ideas for us to act on in moving forward with this work. So thank you all so much for being here. Appreciate it. I hope you have a good rest of your day, and we really appreciate the wisdom, guidance, and your willingness to be open and share your story. And thank you. I'm so proud to be your friends and colleagues.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.